Okay, well, first of all, we could start with looking back until just before COP16 last year. I mean, you said then you wanted to include in the dialogue the developing nations, the small island nations, and private sector, include them far more in the negotiations. Do you feel, after a year after COP16, that came about? Were you happy with the outcome?
Yes, I definitely believe that this was one of the very important contributions of Cancun, of making a truly inclusive and transparent process of negotiation, where everybody was taken duly into account. It was very important to realize when we were at the conference in Copenhagen how frustrated the small island states, the least developed states, were feeling. And to acknowledge that really the fact was that their views were actually not being fully taken into account. So one of the issues that we took very seriously was to take in very at the center of our attention the concerns and the special situation of island states, small island states, and least developed countries. So we participated in most of the meetings of the small island states, of AOCs. We also went and undertook dialogue with the CARICOM countries, which are so near to us and so with whom we have such a close relationship. And this proved to be very productive because I believe this was a way to sensitize them about the need to take a very objective view on the negotiation, to look for something that could be doable, that could be viable, and not to expect that they would get really 100% of what they would be aiming for, but to understand that in a negotiation we all have to give in a little bit and that this is a process that is incremental. So we are very satisfied in that sense. Regarding the private sector, and I would also add the civil society, we also had a very lively exchange and communication with them. And we managed in Cancun to organize the big exhibition of private sector green solutions, of which the second phase has just been held in Mexico City, and that has really attracted a lot of attention from the companies, the private sector, those that are investing a lot in the development of clean technologies, but not only the big companies, also the smaller companies that are doing a lot in that field. And they were also very satisfied, and it was important that we were also briefing them about the process of negotiation. So they were not only involved in their business, in what they are doing directly, but also in how the general framework, the general international framework, is affecting their business and their activities. In civil society, well, we really did undertake a very thorough dialogue throughout the year, and we were very careful that civil society would have the right spaces for expression and for meetings with delegations and with experts from all over the world.
I mean, COP15, to put it mildly, had been a difficult COP, and you were charged with the task in a way of rebuilding confidence, of re-establishing bridges and dialogue. Do you feel you did that in COP16 in Cancun?
Yes, I definitely think this was one of the main outcomes of Cancun, of the main contributions of Cancun. I think that we were, yes, a lot under pressure throughout the year because it was very uncertain. Even when we came to the conference at the very first day in Cancun, we were very uncertain as to what we could achieve. But putting the main focus into really making an inclusive process and trying to take into account everybody's views proved to be the right way to do it.
Moving to the present day and COP17 here in Durban, I mean, women's voices, are they being heard in the debate over climate change?
Well, I think it's important that now basically the negotiating process is in the hands of women, and this was already a lot the case last year in Cancun, and I'm very happy that my successor is the Foreign Minister of South Africa. Not only that, but the Environment Minister of South Africa is also a woman, and I think that's important. I think that's important because it is a fact that women account for more than half of the world's population, that many households in all countries of the world are really under the charge of women, under the authority and being provided for by women. And the role women play also as educators are very important, not only in the teaching, but in the everyday life within their families. It's true, we are all educators to a certain extent, but I think this is more true for women. So it is important. Now, we do have to put an emphasis in the need to mainstream gender issues into policies that are designed to address the fight against climate change. And I think this is the big challenge now. In Mexico, for instance, we have done a great deal into advancing the gender issue as a whole, and now we are putting emphasis especially in the area of gender, so that all the policies throughout the government have an emphasis in the gender perspective.
I mean, I can understand how you would bring up or raise the issue of gender politics, the issue of gender in climate change at a conference like this. Is it then difficult to implement some of the policies related to gender in certain countries, or probably in many countries, where women are not given an equal voice, where they don't have an equal say in the running of their country, in their own households on occasion?
It is a challenge. Even in those countries where there is a clear vision about the need to mainstream gender issues and to give women much more participation in decision making, it is a challenge. So even more in those countries where women have not yet achieved this level of participation. So I think we need to be very creative and to show how important and how easy in many ways the contribution by women in this area is. And I do believe that we need to work a lot on practical examples. How do you deal with that? How do women really participate in this everyday fight against climate change? Take the cases of the rural communities where women are really the ones that decide on the use of the resources that they have in their homes and around their homes, meaning, for instance, the forests and what it means for degradation of the soils. I think there it is a relatively easy task to sensitize women about this, about how damaging this is for the environment, but also for their own livelihoods. And at the same time, I think it is possible to implement policies that are very specifically directed towards women in their role, how to do a better job at home in those rural communities. Of course, they need to be provided with very specific training and also with support, with financial and economic support, so that they can see that their livelihood should not only be based on exploiting the resources that they have around them.
And finally, you've just handed over the chair of COP16 to COP17. What's the message that you either gave or would like to give to the new chair?
Well, I think it's important that we bear in mind that this is a negotiation, that yes, it has a lot of technical complexities, but the main force that will drive this process is the political will and the need to acknowledge that we need to take political decisions. that it is not only about technical negotiation, that this means really putting in the national policies very clear priority to these issues, and that sometimes we will have to give up a little bit of our national vision or the traditional national vision in order to go towards a more sustainable development, which is the only way that we can really go forward.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would you like a little break? I'll ask you a couple of questions in Spanish. Would you like a little break?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yes,
Bueno.
yes.
Okay. So, dos preguntas nomás. La primera, ¿cuál es la importancia de incluir mujeres en las negociaciones aquí en COP17?
Bueno, en primer lugar, yo creo que es importante tener presente, creo que es una forma de mostrar el hecho de que las mujeres son tan capaces o a veces pueden ser más capaces que los hombres, ¿no? Con un sentido práctico, con un sentido muy claro de dirección hacia dónde deben de llevar la negociación. En segundo lugar, creo que también eso pues es una forma de establecer de darle visibilidad al papel que las mujeres pueden y deben de desempeñar, no solo en esta área, sino en todas las áreas de gobierno y en todas las áreas de actividad en nuestras sociedades.
Y como la expresidenta de COP16, ¿cuál es su mensaje a la nueva presidenta de COP17?
Me parece que es muy importante tomar en cuenta y ser plenamente conscientes de que aquí se trata de tomar decisiones políticas y que por eso es tan importante que haya un involucramiento a nivel ministerial y si es posible incluso más arriba de nivel ministerial. En nuestro caso tuvimos la gran fortuna de tener siempre un apoyo directo y activo de nuestro presidente. Entonces que es muy importante trabajar a nivel político porque se trata de decisiones políticas finalmente, sobre todo en este caso hay dos decisiones políticas importantes. Una, me parece, tiene que ver con el establecimiento del Fondo Verde y la aprobación de las reglas de gobernanza que han sido propuestas por el Comité de Transición. Y segundo lugar, también lo que tiene que ver con el futuro del régimen climático, el protocolo de Kioto, pero más allá del protocolo de Kioto, hacia dónde queremos llevar esta negociación.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.